Probably excited about the sessions that we're going to be listening to. I had a session on yesterday, and I was thinking about how it seemed to really embody this idea that Astrid Neimanis has about water speaking in different kinds of languages, and how we need to learn to listen to it and not to translate. It felt a bit like that because we've got all of these different interesting ideas and interesting dealings with water coming from so many various fields of the humanities and the sciences and politics, and it's been really fantastic. So we're going to essentially have, we're hopefully going to have three speakers, and you might already know the structure, but we're going to let the speakers speak for about 15 minutes, do their presentations. We're going to save all questions for the end. If you want to sort of note your questions down in the chat as we're going, because sometimes you do forget a really brilliant question otherwise, just pop it in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. And it's as simple as that. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker for the day, James Bonner, who is Dr. James Bonner, who is a transdisciplinary researcher at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow with an interest in the relationship between people and places. He has worked on research and knowledge exchange projects adopting novel methodological approaches about human relationships to trees and on active mobility practices. This work emerges from his doctoral studies on relationalities to water as a natural and cultural entity, opening ontological and epistemological considerations and challenges to what is water's value and how it's valued. Fascinating. He increasingly finds himself interested in working on issues related to play and seeks to both develop their autoethnographic practices as well as in new collaborations with other human and more than human to critically and imaginatively challenge human and social relationships to place. He's developing experiences of and projects incorporating a variety of audiovisual mediums while collating these representations through techniques such as deep mapping and place-based ethnographic practices and performances as he seeks to satisfy his underlying drive to be more of an artist than a scientist, or at least something that sits across or in between these disciplinary boundaries, or maybe out of them altogether. That's, I think, a great bio. Can't wait to hear what you have to say. Please take the stage.
Thank you. I'll start sharing. Um, is that sharing okay? Perfect. Yep. Thanks everyone. I hope these sessions have been good. I've not been able to make to some of them, but really looking forward to listening. I saw so many on the kind of scenario. I think I'd have to leave my job to actually be able to listen to so many, but hopefully there's time over summer. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm going to give a little presentation today called Interactive Mobilities Within Water. This idea of being interactive speaks to my other work, which I broadly work on around active mobility, which is around walking, cycling, and moving in cities and places. And really what today I've tried to do is a bit of a reflection of encounters with water through these mediums over their last number of years. In my fieldwork in Glasgow, where I'm based, but also where I've done my research broadly during my PhD and otherwise. So really just a kind of opening slide here, a little bit about me. For the last while now, I've been working on a few projects. Water is my PhD background from 2017. In the last few years, I've been working postdoc work around trees and active mobility practices. My side projects, I call my interests, are really in art and cafes and sitting in them, and they're often places to kind of see the world and see expressions of those. And I kind of see all of these practices coming together around ideas of relationality, how we encounter the world, how we encounter place, how we encounter one another, and I think how I relate to myself. So these are just some of the kind of Instagram places where I kind of post some of my work. So really just a quick reflection on some of the work I've been doing. This is back to my PhD, where I use water walks as a methodological practice in Malawi. And that's where I did my fieldwork for a number of months in 2019. And just really experimenting and using ideas of collaging, pulling together, deep mapping, drawing, various ways of representing water's value, water and community. And a lot of this this kind of side, this quote at the side here, this idea of the value of water, or what is the value of water, or what is value in general? How do we represent value? And as we'll often know, there is often an increasing appeal to quantify or monetize monetize nature, monetize society, and this can definitely have problematic issues. And I guess just to actually maybe quite surprisingly say where my PhD background is actually in accounting. And so this in many ways is a provocation within accounting, as a critical accounting perspective to critique how accounting and how we consider accounting as a way of representing, of giving value, and the idea of giving account, and what does it mean to give an account, and why do we account in these certain ways. This has more recently branched out to my work on trees, where I collect postcards around storytelling of relationalities to trees. So trees as an ecological, physical entity, but much more the kind of cultural and relational aspects of how people connect to trees. So I have hundreds of postcards collected from Glasgow, just with members of the public, telling stories around tree relationality, but also extending that out to further groups, and that's work I'm doing this year on Every Tree Tells a Story. And then also broadly, a kind of longer term passion of mine is about active mobility, how we move in cities, how we connect and relate, and how we plan cities in these terms. And a couple of projects more recently working on have also connected in water as well, following water, following rivers. So really, I just thought, well, where does this come to us today? How have I got to today? And kind of really three kind of broad issues or propositions. There's a current petition with the Scottish Government, brought by Louise Welsh and Jude Barber, to propose that the River Clyde, the main river that runs through Glasgow, should it merit personhood? And this is a kind of ongoing story in sort of legal spaces, and that's not my area, about water and rivers achieving personhood. And this, I'm sure there'll be people here that will talk so much better than me on this, but it's one that's happening in my city, and I think is a really interesting one. I was at, and some of you maybe would be well aware of Robert Macfarlane, the writer who writes so beautifully around water, or around nature and relationalities. And he's just released a new book, As a River Alive. And I was at the launch in the Royal Geographic Society earlier this month, and just talked beautifully about water, about relationalities, and a lot of these things I've been interested for some time. He said this line when he was speaking, and it was a lot about legislation and the role of legislation. But he said, imagination precedes legislation. How we see the world, how we want to see the world, how we consider what is important, is valuable, is something we need to encounter, and it's something I'm really interested in. And then just broadly, us now coming together with this idea of living with water, and then just across these three things: personhood, As a River Alive, and living with water. To me, had that recurring connection. This connection you can see at the bottom right: life and water, water and life. These are just mutually connected, ideas, themes, concepts, symbolic issues, but very literal ones as well. And I think that's just something I kind of wanted to reflect on today, really. What have been creative and embodied ways I've sought to practice encounters that recognize water as life, as this thing that is alive, that is something we're in relationship to. And just some literature a number you'll be aware of, that I've sort of engaged from my PhD and just really want to re-engage with, that kind of speak to those. Some that were mentioned as well in the context of this seminar series. So really, what I'm going to just do now in the next few minutes is take you through a kind of reflection of assembling water practices from my past and present. I have this idea that there's lots of bits from my PhD that frustratingly never fitted. They just weren't they didn't fit in the confines of what a PhD were. And there are a lot of embodied practices, me out doing stuff. And I've always had a frustration that I've never honoured them, in a sense, as you can often done other things. And I feel like a couple of years on now that I really want to start honouring them appropriately and properly. And I'm trying to find the time for that. And hopefully this is one. The second idea of place-based encounters and explorations during COVID, and since I found myself during COVID, as many of us, thinking of different ways of engaging with the world. It was much closer to me. I was in Glasgow, I was living on my own, and I was seeking of different ways to engage with the world and with people that I couldn't meet, I couldn't physically encounter, and places of the world, water that I would have connected with over time that I wasn't being able to engage with either. So life was being squashed into a smaller space, and how could I try and creatively manage that? And then just highlighting how I think I've been taking a lot of these kind of practices forward in the last few years, and just applying them. I'm calling this compendium. The compendium is a collection of games, but a kind of place-based games that I like to play myself, I like to play with others, that I like to take people around my city and start playing it, and have done elsewhere. So this is something actually I've not really used. I've embedded some videos actually from my own website, where I've collected a lot of the stuff on my website. Couch to Cairn was this space for just putting stuff during PhD and otherwise, and it's just sat there. I'm not really sure what to do, but it's there, and I'm trying to kind of go back and order it. So these are just sort of things that I've done. So when I was in Malawi, I would do my mapping and I would collect videos, and I was trying to do something was like, I'm speaking as an autoethnographer, someone from, my perspective, engaging with others, but the voice of water, and that the idea I introduced at the start, what's the not giving water voice, because who are we to give, water voice, but paying attention to it. So I would do some things where I'd record water and I'd take photographs, and I'd try to kind of stitch those together. So this little video, which I'll play just now with sound, just is a little piece of a few seconds of some of my encounters with water at a specific location in Malawi, where it was where there was a pipeline project that was going into what was considered as a sacred cultural pool, and this is just some of my records. I won't speak over it.
Sorry, James, we're not getting the sound, which is probably if you stop screen sharing for a moment and then start sharing again, and there should be a little box to the top right saying share sound or something like that you'll need to tick. So you need to go out of screen sharing and go back in and make sure that option is
okay. Shall I try do that?
Yeah, it would be good to have this sound. It seems, especially because we've had in the last couple of days we've had film content, so you'll need to stop sharing and then start again.
So I've stopped sharing.
Yeah, and then click share, and before you sort of okay stuff, there should be some option boxes on the right, and one of them is share sound.
Every day is a learning day.
Yeah, I also had no idea of this until doing these sessions.
We cannot mute Water's voice. So I will find that again. So I'm going to try that again. And
yes.
Good. So just some quiet, you can see quiet noises of the sound of water and of the wind. And I'm no videographer, I'm no artist, though I want to be one. But a lot of these are just experimenting with place, using a little sound recorder to record water. But these are really emotive when I hear those sounds, because they mean a lot to take me back to a place. And I collected a whole number of these while I was away in Malawi. And so a few other kind of experiments I've been playing with. A project I did during COVID was connecting through water from afar. And I had this idea that when I was working with people during COVID, you couldn't touch them, you couldn't connect with them, you couldn't meet them. So I tried a project. I had this idea: if two people went in the water at the same time at different places and they touched the water, would they be essentially joining hands because the water would form the conduit between us? So I just arranged over those few months of places where I was living to connect with friends who were living in other parts of the world. And here's just a couple from then. This first one is from Fife in the east coast of Scotland, connecting to Gothenburg in Sweden with a friend who was there. And I just... Sorry, I think that I may have stopped. And this second one is connecting from the Clyde to my nephew, who I couldn't see during COVID, because we weren't in the same bubble. And so I missed meeting with him and doing things with him. So I thought maybe one day he was away with his mum and dad, visiting the coast, that could we connect through the river? If I touched the river and he touched the sea, would we be able to connect? So this is him just further down the coast in Scotland, playing in the water. And we just sent messages to say each other, now we're connecting, now we're touching water. And it was just a really nice experiment in trying to think around water as a conduit, something is in between, and kind of honouring that. And then I'll quickly move on to this other one. It's just something I do anytime I go to a city or a place. I just record voices, stitch them together. Back in Iceland, it's one of my favourite countries, my favourite places to go to. Hear the bell of the church, the water lapping, the landscapes, these nice and bigger pictures, but just to give an idea. And just this constant collating of images and soundscapes. I'm here in Glasgow during a thunderstorm and trying to collect water in a dish just to keep and hold for a while. And you can hear like children screaming and shouting as they're in the thunderstorm. And just finally, this is from where my family comes, from the northwest of Ireland. And this is a river up in the mountains. It's a place called the Bridge. It's a bridge of tears. And it's a place where the local village folk would walk their family members before they departed over the hills as they emigrated to America, to Scotland, where that's my kind of story. And water always having that kind of place that marks something. So those are three experiments on just some experiments. I'll just move next slide. Yes, this is kind of those experiments of just playing with time have moved me on to some of my more recent work, where I've actually sort of tried to apply these in practice and place in my work. Walking, again, as a methodology. I did an event a couple of weeks ago with Walking Rivers, who are a group who have been doing walks. They do 17th of May, they try and do a walk in various places around the world. And I arranged a walk for that. Again, this idea of interweaving and moving along place. And then last year in the Faroe Islands, I did a walk as a kind of creative practice as part of the IWRA Islands Water Congress. Took people out, took these frames with me, which I'd cut out, and asked people to kind of look through the frame and look at water and think about water, think about what was water outside of the frame. Generally just playing with these creative practices and trying to compile those together. And really, I'll just to finalise. That's my kind of reflection on some things I've been doing. Why am I thinking around this? What are my kind of thoughts? Well, Estrada Namanis talks about this idea of water is life, water is life, water is life. And I have always this thought, when we practice and recognise or entangle with water as living beings, being alive. So this question is always thought to me is like, do performing methods, do these make us reconsider or kind of onto epistemic orientation, relationalities to the world? Does the act of doing a method and creative methods make us rethink how we do and practice the world and how we think of what the world looks like? And I am concerned about, kind of technocentric approaches to how we do research, how we do life. Are we removing ourselves from the world? And just some words on the right here that Ishkaba, which is the Scottish word for Gaelic, Scottish Gaelic word for whiskey, literally translates as water of life in Malawi. Madzi de Moyo, water is life, is a well-known phrase. And in just a few spirits, aquavit, water of life. Water, life, and spirit seem to come together to me. Thank you. That's my presentation. And really looking forward to questions. Sorry, I ran over time a little.
No, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Everyone, yeah, please, you can use your little emojis or you can turn your camera. But that was fantastic. We'll save all the questions for the end, and we're going to sort of move on to our next speaker for today, who is B. Venugopal. B. Venugopal is a dedicated academic and researcher with over 5 years of teaching experience in the field of media and communication at a private arts and science college. With a strong educational background that includes undergraduate, postgraduate, and MPhil degrees, he is currently pursuing a PhD in media sciences. His research focuses on effective urban water conservation strategies, a study on media and communication interventions, exploring how media platforms and communication tools can influence and improve urban water conservation efforts. Venugopal's work bridges academic theory and real-world impact, aiming to create sustainable change through strategic media engagement. He is passionate about using communication as a catalyst for social awareness, especially in environmental and civic issues. Beyond academia, Venugopal is also interested in roles that harness his analytic and interpersonal skills, such as consultancy, financial advising, agency work, and power brokerage. So welcome, Venugopal, and please go ahead and you can start your presentation. You can use the share screen button if you've got slides.
Yes, sure. The screen is visible. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm honored to present our seminar on the reverse voice, indigenous water narratives, and their effect on legal frameworks. A topic on that lies at the intersection of culture, ecology, and law. Let me begin with a simple and profound thought. So, water is not just a resource. So, for many indigenous communities, especially in India, water is life, heritage, and identity. It is scared, it breathes, it teaches. So, unfortunately, our modern legal systems often fail to reflect this worldview. They reduce rivers to commodities, objects to be owned, extracted, or regulated. But indigenous narratives offer something fundamentally different. They see rivers not as things, but as beings with spirit, agency, and moral standing. What are indigenous water narratives? So, indigenous water narratives are not written down in statements or textbooks. They live in oral traditions songs, rituals, and stories passed down through generations. These narratives don't just describe water, they embody it. So, for instance, in many tribal and rural communities, rivers are referred to as relatives, not resources. So, they are respected as teachers, as sources of life that demanded reciprocity. So, there is a deep sense of interconnection between human and non-human life, between land and spirit. This is what gives indigenous narratives their power. They are not abstract or theoretical. They are rooted in lived experience, in ecological wisdom, and in ethical responsibility. So, urban water crisis in Chennai. So, the Chennai is in the part of Tamil Nadu. Now, let's turn to a more familiar context. Chennai, our own urban landscape. In 2019, we faced day zero, a moment of extreme water scarcity. Taps ran dry. Water tankers became lifelines. It was not just a crisis of supply, it was a crisis of values and vision. In such scenario, cultural narratives are not merely symbolic. They became critical or rethinking our relationship with water. So these are the major few things. So for example, Villupattu. So the traditional Tamil folk art through musical storytelling. It narrates the ecological and spiritual dimensions of rivers, or consider the lyrics of poet Vairamuthu. So, who often portrays rivers not as utilities, but as living beings we are emotionally and essentially connected to. So, these expressions not just art, they are archives of ecological memories containing knowledge that modern policy offer ignores. So let us see the legal view. So let's examine how the law sees water. So most legal frameworks are anthropocentric. So it's centered around human needs. They talk about ownership, usage rights, and economic value. They are not acknowledge water's spiritual dimensions or ecological role or its right to exist beyond human interest. So this approach creates a blind spot. It fails to ask what does the river need? What does the river want? So these are the legal pluralism. So there is an emerging concept that can help us bridge this gap, legal pluralism. So this means acknowledging that there is more than one way to understand and govern water. It means welcoming indigenous knowledge into legal frameworks. There are successful examples. In New Zealand, the Maori River that been granted legal personhood, recognizing the Maori worldwide that the river in an ancestor. In doing so, the law begins to speak the language of reciprocity and respect. So, the participatory governance involving local communities like ecological balance and utility-based approaches. So now we are going the bridging the divide. So of course, the integration is not easy. So we face challenges, legal rigidity, and colonial legacies. So dismissal of oral traditions in courts, political and bureaucratic resistance. But there are also opportunities promoting legal pluralism, encouraging community-based water management, and integrating indigenous wisdom into education and policies. So now we are finalizing the thoughts. So let me end up with hopeful reflection. If we begin to hear the river's voice, not just through pipelines, policies, or pollution data, but through songs, stories, and ceremonies, we may be able to shape a more just and sustainable water future. Indigenous narratives do not oppose science or law, they complete them. They remind us that water is not just something we manage, it is something we belong to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic. I don't know if this is useful, Venugopal, but I have a translation of one of Vairumuthu's poems that I can paste here for everyone. It's the Chinna Chinna, it's the Small Raindrops poem. If you know it, I'm just pasting it there. If anyone wants to know the poetry that he was talking about, it's beautiful work. I only have it in translation. I don't have the Tamil version though. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. We're going to take all the questions at the end. So well, we'll just move on to the next speaker and then we'll get all the questions together. So our last speaker for the day is Julia Libor, and she's an independent scholar from the coastal town Wilhelmshaven in Germany. She holds a Master's of Arts in English Philology and from the University of Göttingen in Germany. Her research focuses on ecofeminist matters, space, life writing, and music. As an independent scholar, she's published on ecofeminism in Shakespeare and has contributed to the field of ecocriticism in attending various conferences such as the EASLCE in 2018 and 2022, the ProGEC Network on Progressive Rock and Ecology at the University of Oxford in 2022, and at the Musical Institute of Krakow in 2024, and the LCCT at London Metropolitan University in 2023 on romanticism and progressive rock. Today she's presenting the 9th wave on narratives of water and women's progressive rock. Julia, please go ahead.
Yeah. I hope you can all understand me well, like hear me well. Yeah, cool. I'm going to share the screen now.
Yes, it's working well, Julia. You are muted though, so we can't hear you.
It's working, but you're muted.
Julia, you're muted, so we can't hear you. Maybe it's another technical issue.
If there's a if one of you's the organizer, you can unmute her, and that might help if she can't unmute herself.
It's only letting me ask to unmute, but not. Oh yeah, she's showing us the screen and showing us that it shows unmuted on her side. Oh, now you look unmuted for us as well.
Speak to us, Julia.
Did it work? Is everything working?
Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Sorry for that.
Oh, all good.
Yeah.
I'm sharing the screen again.
We've had every combination so far with your
Yeah.
screen. We had it not working at all, then we had it working normally. Now we had a new thing which was working but without your sound.
Okay.
We can hear you, and we
Good.
can see
Thanks.
your screen. So it should be
Everything's
good now.
working. Yay.
Should be good.
Thanks for the feedback. That's good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Again, thanks for having me on the panel. Thanks for organizing everything. Yeah, I will present to you the Ninth Wave, which is the B-side of Kate Bush's work, Hounds of Love. Yeah, let me start. So I think progressive rock, interestingly, entails narratives of nature and environment. And it certainly deserves a closer look, as particularly progressive rock from the 1970s serves as a cultural and musical answer and moment to ecological matters at the time. It is perhaps of this, or the general human need to understand and grasp nature through the arts, that concepts of nature are reflected on in music until today. So this paper, or today in this presentation, I aim to provide some insights to the natural world in progressive rock using Kate Bush's B-side of her record Hounds of Love from 1985. So the B-side is of particular interest as it deals greatly with kind of an immersive experience of a woman who is lost at sea. And as Kate Bush reveals in an interview for BBC Radio in 1992, quote, "The idea is that they've been on a ship and they've been washed over the side, so they're alone in this water." And I find that horrific imagery, the thought of being completely alone in all this water. And they've got a life jacket with a little light so that if anyone should be traveling at night, they see the light and know they're there. End of quote. So we have a situation, and the situation of being lost at sea at night is created by Bush through, I find, a remarkable multi-leveled narrative, which certainly deserves more recognition. Her later interviews on the B-side complement the story of the lost woman at sea, and so do the tracks that deal with the state of this woman while she's lost. So Bush is able to create a terrifying atmosphere narrated through 7 songs on this B-side. I will not only look at the lyrics here, I will also, as you can see in the presentation, include the album cover art, or back of the album in that case, which shows Bush lying in water with a life jacket. And this imagery is later, it was recreated by her for a 2014 live performance. Moreover, we find on this back cover an extract of a poem by English poet Alfred Tennyson called The Coming of Arthur, which references huge waves, and drawing back to the title of Bush's B-side, The Ninth Wave, also refers to 1850 painting by Ivan Abazovsky. The large waves here depicted in a painting. I'll throw back to Romanticism ideas of the sublime and horrifying nature, which is again reflected upon in Bush's lyrics of the woman lost at sea. So this conceptual B-side consists of 7 songs, and the state of the persona on this B-side, it starts to be narrated with its first song, In Dream of Sheep. It introduces the listener to the scene, and the song overall describes the persona fighting the horrifying surroundings and longing for a calm moment and sleep. There is danger in wanting sleep, as it might mean to turn over and potentially drown. And the meaning of tossing and turning in the water is further highlighted by the lines in the first verse, which read, quote, "If they find me racing horses, they'll not take me for a boy," end of quote, depicting again an existential threat, an image of survival in the ocean. Another literary device to narrate the ocean is the use of radio voice signals that are used at sea and to navigate the sea. In the song, the radio message are, quote, "Attention, shipping information in sea areas, Bellrock, Cromarty, Gale East, Mellon, Sellafield," end of quote, which are all coastal places from England to Scotland. It is followed by a mature, comforting female voice that says, quote, "Come here with me now," end of quote, that contrasts the radio messages. A female voice here can indicate a guardian, can indicate a guardian, or perhaps a motherly figure. Other interesting sounds supporting the ocean narrative is the use of actual seagull sounds in the background of the line, quote, every gull is seeking craft, end of quote, and the sound of breaking waves toward the end of the song, which are then used as a transitional sound to the following song, Under Ice. And this sound in the transition, the sound of waves, it transforms to a sound of wind when Bush's voice begins singing the lyric of this track, and this track contributes to the terrifying, lonely atmosphere again, this time with a dark and rather monotone tone and beat. And Bush's voice sings in a deep voice as well at the beginning, following this monotone beat of the song. The lyrics read, quote, it's wonderful, everywhere so white. The river has frozen over, not a soul on the ice, only me skating fast, end of quote. So again, a theme of transitioning is somewhat apparent here as the lyrics depict the ever-changing forms of water such as snow and ice. Then, guiding you through this B-side, the track Waking the Witch is next. So here the listener experiences a somewhat summoning force. The lyrics tell the story of a witch being brought back to life, being summoned, then accused. The witch can also be interpreted as a feminist matter, telling a story of a woman being accused of all sorts of things, can be interpreted as a narrative of oppression, if you will. And interestingly and similarly, the narrative of water is here a more metaphorical and existential one in this track, as the lyrics read, quote, we are of the going water and gone. We are of the water and the holy land of water, end of quote. Toward the end, we hear the sound of a helicopter with the lyrics, quote, get out of the waves, get out of the water, end of quote, which refers back to the situation of the main protagonist. And in the following track, Jig of Life, we hear these lines again. The song can be interpreted as a conversation between a young lyrical self and its older counterpart. Most importantly, the song describes a close relation of the self to water, as the lyrics read that the person is, quote, one with the ocean and the woman unfurled, end of quote. And later in the song, we hear the lines from Waking the Witch again, which are, we are of water in the holy land of water. And it shows again this close relationship of the human mind and human body to water. And while these two songs I introduced you to are dealing with water in a much more metaphorical way, the second to last song of the concept B-side is Hello Earth. And here we find the perspective and relation of humans to Earth described in, I think, a more literal sense. The track ties back again to what Bush said in the interview mentioned earlier and gives the listener yet again a vivid imagery of a person lost in the vastness of the ocean. The track Hello Earth begins with an edited conversation from the landing of the first space shuttle flight on the 14th of April, 1981. And this NASA conversation sets the scene, provides a feeling for the atmosphere, and it depicts how small we are in our cosmos. And it depicts, I think, a human-centered view of the Earth very well. And Kate Bush, she sings, hello Earth, with just one held hand up high, I can block you out of sight. And again, we have a perspective here which shows very clearly how small we are in the end. Other lyrics read, quote, watching storms start to form over America, can't do anything, just watch them swing with the wind out to sea. And in general, the lyrics overall highlight the relationship between humans and the earth. And on the back cover, as I mentioned, we saw an extract, or there is an extract of a poem by Alfred Tennyson. And this poem reads, just show you the picture here. Wave after wave, each mightier than the last, till last a ninth one, gathering half the deep and full of voices, slowly rose and plunged, roaring, and all the wave was in a flame. This is the poem on the album cover art. And Kate Bush draws upon the ninth wave, influenced by both The Coming of Arthur and Aberzoski's renowned 1850 artwork, The Ninth Wave, which, as you can see in this picture here, depicts a group of shipwrecked individuals at sea. And the imagery serves well as a metaphor for the ultimate wave preceding drowning, establishing a pivotal moment here that anchors the album in general and also shapes its overarching narrative. The examination of the ninth wave in relation to The Coming of Arthur, it offers, I think, substantial material for the discussion. But my focus in general is more on the theme of nature. Otherwise, I will keep talking for 3 hours or so. So we have the motive of this huge wave and the sea as both uncanny and fearsome. And this has been a recurring narrative throughout human history, and it has manifested in various forms. Here, the female protagonist confronts the ocean and confronts it as a powerful force that poses a threat to humanity. And in Tennyson's poem, which serves as a foundation for Kate Bush's work, the concept of an immense, daunting, and perhaps uncontrollable wave is accentuated as it continues to swell. So we have both Bush lyrics and Tennyson's poem depict the wave as a sublime force and one that eludes full human comprehension. So finally, the B-side ends with the track The Morning Fog, and the title indicates a new day, a new beginning, perhaps rebirth. And the lyrics read, for example, I am falling like a stone, like a storm, being born again into the sweet morning fog. So again, also musical-wise, the overall sound is much more hopeful. We have upbeat sounds again. And later in the lyrics, the protagonist is declaring who she will tell she loves, like her parents, her family, once she is rescued. In an interview, Bush states, quote, well, that's really meant to be the rescue of the whole situation, where now suddenly, out all of this darkness and weight comes light. You know the weightiness is gone, and here's the morning, and it's meant to feel very positive and bright and uplifting from the rest of dense darkness of the previous track. And we have a full circle moment in 2014. Kate Bush had a concert residency at the Hammersmith Apollo in London called Before the Dawn. This was a multimedia performance series, which again highlights, I think, very well Kate Bush's intention to narrate the ocean in a very immersive way. And for the performance of Dream of She, Bush recreated the picture of the back of the album cover, as you can see. And also, it was Bush's first concert after 35 years of not really performing live. She actually does sing this song in a large vessel filled with water, and she recreates again, in a literal sense, on this level, not only with words, but with her body, she creates a scene of a woman lost at sea. I like this quote or remark by Tim Johns of The Guardian, who says, quote, she created sea scenes through using bits of cloth. She was on video in a life jacket. There was one bit where a lounge was wheeled on stage and you got to watch a conversation between her husband and son who are watching Liverpool versus Chelsea on TV. She disappears behind them as she's haunting them. And there's a seahorse skeleton walking around the stage. So concluding, and to wrap this up, I hope I was generally be able to give you an idea as to why I think The Ninth Wave by Kate Bush portrays a truly immersive, multi-layered narrative about the ocean. She uses different literary devices to create an authentic, I think, authentic ocean scene, and she portrays the ocean literally and metaphorically alike. And especially prog women singing about nature and environments, I think, shall be examined much more as it reveals, as you can see, fruitful narratives about the human understanding of the earth. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Julia. That was really fantastic. You can see everyone's applauding as well.